Namaste. We see a dog jumping and whining when a person is going out. A child sob, cry, or throw tantrums when being separated. We adults too, some people are extremely mobile, while there are others who find changing cities, houses, or jobs extremely difficult. Such individuals are not able to separate from people or places. And when this condition continues to exist and becomes overwhelming, it leads to separation anxiety. It's a disorder very less talked about, but affects many world over. Today, we will discuss all that we need to know about separation anxiety with our psychoanalysis consultant, Mr. Himanshu Vaid. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir, what is separation anxiety disorder?
Human beings are attachment driven creatures. So, whenever any attachment ruptures or a distance is created, we all feel a sense of object loss, and every separation, regardless how small or big it is, always involves anxiety and pain. However, in most of us, this is a temporary passing phase, and we are able to get over it. Separation, small or large, over a period of time, we are able to overcome, and this does not become a constraint and impairment to our personal or social functioning. However, in some people, this inability to separate from parents, home, home city, institution where they study, institution where they work, this becomes a constraining, crippling factor. It produces large amount of anxiety, pain, and impairment in social functioning. This is what we call as separation anxiety disorder. The disorder where a person is incapable of separating in a normal way from their parents, their home, their hometown, the institution they are associated with, or something that is so deeply attached to them that they cannot undertake a normal separation from that entity.
So, what are the symptoms which are covered under this term, separation anxiety?
Uh, the primary feature is inability to separate from what you are attached to, and that involves inability to separate from parents, inability to separate from the city one is living in, inability to sleep somewhere else other than the place you are accustomed to sleep, inability to be out of home for a long time, inability to go on a very long vacation, inability to be away from certain articles that you are using every day. Okay? So all this essentially it's a disorder of not being able to separate from whatever you are attached to. So it involves two things: extraordinarily intense attachment and incapability to overcome that attachment, and consequently also the incapability to form new attachments, because one, you are not able to separate from the previous attachment, and two, over a period of time as the attachments rupture, leading to anxiety and pain which is unbearable, over a period of time the anxiety to form new attachment also develops.
What are the psychoanalytic explanation of the causation of this particular disorder?
This disorder is far more common than we believe.
Hmm.
In fact, uh, you can see this disorder as a comorbidity in many cases of generalized anxiety disorder, in many cases of uh, dependent personality disorder, in many cases of uh, how do you say it? Uh, the the anxiety that we see the almost a panic kind of situation that we see when one has to, for example, move out forever. Take example of marriage, right? Where one has to move out from one city to another, and it almost resembles a panic kind of situation, although the real problem is of separation anxiety. So psychoanalysis understands this in a variety of ways. First, uh, it is essentially a disorder of attachment, that in early life the person faced a break of attachment, and we are talking of 3 to 6 months of age, where the perceived abandonment led to such high intensity of anxiety and pain that the person developed a template: never again. Never again will I feel this. Never again should I feel this. And therefore, never again I will separate. And this peaks at around 7 months of age, where this gets the separation anxiety disorder in very early stages, gets to the peak of it. And of course, I'm talking of most of the cases, not all the cases, but it peaks at 7 months of age. And then uh, it remains with the person. And in most cases, if the person is living in almost a self-sufficient city today, in today's condition, it never surfaces till the person has to go out on a vacation, or to study in a different city, or in terms of marriage, relocate. Now, the psychoanalytic explanation is this. One, we are looking at very early experience of abandonment, intense anxiety and pain, and the formation of template: never again. Two, we are looking at the failure of the transitional object and the entire transitional object phenomena to repair the abandonment of pre-transition phase era. Third, we are looking at intense pain in attachments, which may be related to, in Freudian terms, the phenomena of secondary narcissism. That simultaneously, along with that phenomena, we might be looking at a separation anxiety disorder also, which is hiding below the surface manifestation of secondary narcissism. Third, the Kleinian phenomena will be, the Kleinian explanation will be of the loss of the all good breast or the all good mother, which is unbearable. Right? And therefore the template: never again to separate. It may also have to do with uh, fused self-object kind of relationships which are suddenly ruptured. And again, it leads to such unbearable pain that again you create this template of never again. And it may also be over the time learning, where the pathology may not be created in an event but may develop over a period of time if there is a fused kind of relationship with either of the parent, and then suddenly it ruptures and the person goes into a very difficult psychological and socio-economic state. That also can create intense pain. So the whole pathogenesis of this disorder lies in the generic phenomena that you were intensely attached to something, and the attachment has ruptured. The rupture has led to unbearable feelings of anxiety and pain, and that has created a template: never again. That I will never experience these feelings again, and if I don't have to experience these feelings again, I will never allow a detachment to happen, a separation to happen. Now, this creates a problem where normal human separation also is seen as abandonment, as an attachment rupture, whereas the human dynamics is such that people come close, they go apart, they come close, they go apart. It's an ongoing, ceaseless dynamic. So every distancing is not necessarily rupture. Every distancing is not a break of relationship. Every distancing is not abandonment, but it is interpreted as such. So they are not able to see distancing as normal. they see it as unbearable abandonment. So this is how psychoanalysis views it of the phenomena of attachment failure, hypersensitivity, wrong template creation, confusing of normal distancing and closing of, confusing of normal closeness and distancing in human relationships as phenomena of merger and abandonment, the failure of the transitional object and the transitional period, and uh, uh, a sort of uh, too much fusion or too little practice of going out of home or being away from parents. So all of these are the causes that psychoanalysis would like to uh, dwell upon while analyzing this pathology.
So then how does psychoanalysis proceed with the healing of separation anxiety disorder?
Uh, we have to go back and revisit the trauma where this was created, understand it, and cathart out the feeling. So the process is generic. However, there is a very important thing to be noted here, and that is uh, while we are working with a person with this disorder, and not only in this case, what I am going to say also is true for most chronic deep seated disorders, that when we start working and we start going deeper, when the person actually touches the bottom, the real cause, which may be in early childhood, the feelings are so unbearable that it is always better to have the person on medication, so that when the person really touches the full force of those uncomfortable effects, he has medication to lean upon. Otherwise, it can become very, very distressing, almost unbearable for many people. Right? And this is true for any deep-seated pathology, that a person comes to you at 35 and the pathology was started when he was 3 months, 5 months, 7 months of age or 2 years of age, and the pathology has lived inside of him for such a long time. So it is a very deep and intense pathology. So when we start exploring such pathology, the person has to be told two things. One, that he should be ready for the full wrath, facing the full wrath of this disease. And second, keep medication ready if needed. That is one part. Now coming to the question what you asked proper, in terms of duration, therapy where we are meeting twice a week, at least for 1 to 2 years. And the way we are looking at it is, it will start off with the cohesion approach and then go into analysis of attachment. Okay? And it should, like in case of social anxiety disorder, this also requires practice. I know of a person who cannot sleep in any other bed than his own bed. He was once admitted to a hospital, and he is himself a doctor. And he requested other doctors that he should be allowed to go home, sleep, and come back in the morning. And it was such a discomfort for him that he himself is a senior doctor, a senior professor in medicine. But he took leave from the hospital, came home, and went back. So at least he had to be in his bed for 1 or 2 hours, after which he could go back. So what we are looking at here is also a reverie torture kind of a phenomenon, that the moment he separates from the object of attachment, he gets into a torture like feeling, a state, and the moment he gets back close to the object of attachment, he experiences bliss and reverie. So getting into his own bed almost is like being uh, with a warmly clothing, all protecting, all giving mother. He feels like a warmly protected child in a very healthy cold winter. Right? It's a very cozy feeling. But the moment he is not in his bed and some other bed, he almost feels like torture, unbearable, unspeakable anxiety rises up in him. He does not know what is happening. All he knows is it is unbearable. So what we are looking here is, uh, in terms of healing, 1 to 2 year therapy twice a week, cohesion approach followed by the attachment analysis and behavioral practice, so that the person can go out of his bed, let us say for 1 day, or go away from his parents for 1 week and slowly increase it. So, like in case of social anxiety, this is also a disorder where behavioral therapy and practice and gradual desensitization is very important to complement the psychoanalytic work that we are doing. In fact, I know of many people who suffer so much that they are not married because they could not separate from their parents. And uh, when the parents died and they started aging, they found themselves absolutely lonely. And many of them actually ended up in depression and had to take medication for depression. And if you look at the root of their depression, it is loneliness, and the root of that loneliness is separation anxiety. And the root of that separation anxiety is very early life childhood attachment failure. So we see how something that is happening at 3 to 4 months of age can, if not addressed, spoil the whole life of the person.
So, sir, in that case, how would holistic healing help? Does it have a role to play?
Yes, because uh, separation anxiety will lead to uh, very intense discomfort and anxiety. And it will also lead to a combined feeling of anxiety and pain. The anxiety of terrifying threat to survival and the pain of object loss. Uh, Tools like Reiki, pranic healing, certain forms of pranayam, guided visualization, guided exposure, gradual desensitization, some elements of psychodrama, homeopathy, all these are very important tools to help the person slowly face it. The key is this: if you wait for the separation event to happen and the person is unprepared, the event is simply overwhelming. The person in most cases will run away from the event and go for a dysfunctional solution, whatever the price of it. Like I narrated the incident of a few people not marrying at all and paying such a huge price. So whatever the price they will pay, but not face that pain and anxiety which is unbearable. So it is always salutary and prudent to start practicing separation when the actual event has not happened, so that one is prepared for the actual event. If you wait for the actual event, it's just overwhelming. So holistic healing in terms of Reiki, pranic healing, hypnotherapy, relaxation, homeopathy, psychodrama, guided visualization, gradual desensitization, social support groups, right, who can go with that person outside of the hometown, right, or help in the separation process, provide alternate objects of attachment at least temporarily for that process. All this is very important to complement the central psychoanalytic work and the behavioral therapy work. So while psychoanalysis is at the center, the behavioral therapy work is a minor complement. These also are micro complements to this whole package of healing.
And sir, what about patient education? What is all that a patient with a person suffering from separation anxiety disorder need to know or be mindful of?
It is very, very important because most of them don't know they have this problem. It is so unconscious, and even if the thought occurs to them, something in them represses it or puts it aside. And even if they catch it, they try to negate it, not accept it, and not discuss with anybody or reveal to anybody. So what happens is, first it impairs highly their mobility in real life and in socio-economic terms, in job terms, and also in personal terms. It's a huge impairment. So the moment you tell the patient about it, what he is suffering from, he for the first time realizes the price he is paying consciously, and he starts working about it, because once he knows the price, obviously he does not want to pay the price and he wants to get over it. So he starts working for it. Uh, in many cases of divorces, right, this becomes a very big factor, where the person has an undiagnosed separation anxiety disorder and is not able to separate from the partner despite the relationship not working well. And then it is like banging your head on the wall. The partner won't change and you can't separate. So this becomes a kind of a, what I call a very tragic holding state, right? Very tragic, but somehow you survive there. It's an existence of misery which just drags on. So if the patient is given adequate education, certain things happen. One, the patient knows the price and therefore starts working upon it. Two, he knows the do's and don'ts, what triggers it, what does not trigger it. Three, he knows what therapy or medication to seek and what is working or not working. Fourth, he can participate voluntarily, right, by doing small behavioral projects, right, which prepare him for larger separations. Five, he knows what to report, what not to report, right, and he also knows the limitations if he is not able to overcome certain things. Okay? So this psychoeducation of the patient helps him a great deal, right? Because particularly in case of divorces or in case of separation from a particular lifestyle, say you are living in a hostel for 5 years and you have to come back home, or you are living at home and go to the hostel. In all those situations, the very fact the person does not know about it and feels it, the effects of it, it makes the effects even worse. So when we put all of this together, the person, once he is educated enough, knows what it is, knows the price, works upon it, seeks holistic tools to heal him, seeks social support groups, right? And also knows if nothing can work, what are his limitations. So the frustration is not there. At some point, acceptance comes that I have to live with this limitation. So it's very, very important to have the person educated in this disorder, which mostly remains undiagnosed.
And how about the family members and the caregivers, other than not losing their cool? What else should they know and be mindful about?
They should be mindful about the deep roots of this problem. To a normal person, it looks like the person is just throwing a tantrum or just acting very touchy or very choosy on his, he wants the world on his terms, or he's just looking at too much of comfort being at home. But this is not the fact. The fact is that there is an early childhood trauma that we are dealing with. It is not a tantrum of an adult, it's a trauma which is rendering the adult incapable. It's crippling the adult. So it is not something that is made up by the person. It is something from deep in the unconscious against which the person is himself helpless completely. So once the parents know about this, their reaction to the person suffering from disorder changes. Otherwise, they end up being critical, they end up being persecuting, and they add to the misery of the person. They find it very difficult to empathize, because this is such a non-common behavior that most people find it difficult to empathize and come down heavily upon it only as a tantrum. And they feel that if you don't come down heavily, you will actually be feeding the pathology even more. Right? That you will be pampering the pathology instead of destroying the pathology, which is not true, and it actually traumatizes the person even more.
Works the
So
other way
first
around.
is the yeah. So first is the understanding that we are actually dealing with a problem and not a tantrum. Second, they know what triggers and what does not trigger, and therefore they can start preparing. So if they have to go out for a vacation, it might need a preparation a few days back to prepare the person to leave the house. Right? And they know when they go to a vacation that the person may need extra care when they are out of home. Okay? They would also know that the person may find professional constraints in progressing professionally because he cannot leave the city or the state. They also would be able to know the do's and don'ts, and if they are getting frustrated from the person, they are able to handle themselves better in terms of not developing secondary problems of anger, right, because of this person. Lastly, they are able to find holistic tools and social support groups which are salutary for the person, and also participate or encourage the person to go in for therapy and behavioral experiments which can slowly bring the person out, right, or make the person more resilient to face separations.
Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. We have covered separation anxiety disorder today, and in our subsequent videos, we will be covering many such disorders from the DSM-5 series. Do watch our coming videos and write to us either in the comment box or mail us at hvindia@gmail.com. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.